there's a radicalness in putting your story on the page and then presenting it to an audience, and there's a radicalness to receiving that story, and I just want to thank you for that act this evening. So with that said, I'm going to give things over to Car, who's going to give an actual introduction to this evening, and thank you again for coming, and I'm excited to talk to all of you afterwards. Thanks. Car?
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. So welcome to Poet's House. Saludos a todos, bienvenidos. For those of you who might be new to this space, we're a non-for-profit poetry library. We're free and open to the public. We have over 80,000 volumes of poetry in our collection, and we're one of the most comprehensive public poetry collections in the world. We also hold exhibitions, special collections, and public programming, such as our reading series. And our new work series celebrates recently released poetry collections. I'm super excited to be welcoming you to tonight's reading and celebration of Someone Else's Hunger, the debut poetry collection by Isabella DeSendi. So, yeah. I've written a quick little intro about the book. In her first full-length book, DeSendi explores the trajectories of the body, weathering assault and returning to desire, pausing to ruminate on the intersections that come with healing through a series of self-portraits, sonnets, elegies, and prose. She searches for moments of beauty and tenderness amid life's challenges, and the bilingual prose is rife with references to Cuban-American heritage, rooting her echoes of displacement within the larger diaspora of Latinx poetics. Isabella will be joined by poets Yesenia Montilla and José Olivarez. Together, they will share work that addresses themes of dislocation, love, and survival within the context of the 21st century United States, weaving together personal and collective narratives while celebrating the art and poetry of Latinx heritage. We have 2 readings for tonight, followed by a conversation, like a Q&A sort of style, very informal, with the audience, and then after the reading, the books will be available for sale in the lobby where you came in, so please buy some books. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our first reader, Yesenia Montilla, to the stage. Yesenia is an Afro-Latina poet and daughter of immigrants. She has received her MFA from Drew University in Poetry and Poetry and Translation. She's a Canto Mundo graduate fellow and a 2020 NIFA fellow, and her work has been published in Academy of American Poets, Poem a Day, Prairie Schooner, Gulf Coast, and Best in American Poetry 2021 and 2022. Her first collection, The Pink Box, is published by Willow Books and was longlisted for a PEN Open Book Award. Her second collection, Muse Found in a Colonized Body, was published by Four-Way Books in 2022 and was nominated for the NAACP Image Award. She lives in Harlem, New York. Everybody give it up.
Thanks, Car, so much for hosting and being the MC tonight. I just want to, Bella, when Bella asked me to read tonight, I was like, of course. I felt deeply honored, and I spent some time with her book, and I hope all of you buy it as soon as you're out of here, because it's an incredible collection. I was only on page like 20, and I didn't want to stop, so please run out and buy. I'm going to just make sure that I don't go over time. My mentor, Gerald Stern, would always say, don't go over time. Actually, leave them waiting, wanting a little bit more, right? And then he'd come up and read for 45 minutes or so. But there we go. I'm going to start off with poems from Muse Found in a Colonized Body, and thinking about Hurricane Maria. We just came upon the anniversary. This is a poem that I wrote around that time, thinking about hurricanes and spirals. Some notes on being human. The dead are everywhere, the mouse rotting away inside my walls, the rat in the basement trap. And just yesterday, my Dominican cab driver ran over a pigeon on the corner of 145th and St. Nick. I'm used to that. It's the dead people I can't handle. So many, and I fear we all have our hands in it. And can I mention circles? How the universe is made up of them, yet we behave so linear, as if life weren't a round mouth full of reverie, as if stirring the pot or a morning bustelo wasn't a circular action. Everything is a spiral, as improbable as a galaxy, as destructive as a hurricane. And this is just to say that there are more solar systems than there are us, and we still haven't learned to live as stars. And while we're on the subject of living, is this all there is to it? To be born, to become enraged, to break ourselves against an indestructible machine. But what about being a blinding, beautiful, and incorruptible thing? And speaking of corruption, have I mentioned colonization? Being imposed a foster parent without arms to hold you, only teeth and spit. And did I mention Africa? Or does that require another poem? I once had a lover that told me, "You're so black." I took it as a compliment. He meant it as goodbye. Every Sunday I call my abuela and we go over all the week's tragedies. She is brown and woman. Trauma is the only way she stays tethered to the earth. She tells me, "Ponte las pilas," and for hours I search my body for slots where batteries might fit, because I imagine the only way to save humanity is to be a little less human. A lot of my work is also rooted in desire. I think I'm a student of Audre Lorde, obviously, but also a student of Adrienne Marie Brown, who wrote about pleasure activism. And so a lot of my poems lean into the pleasure of the body. This is Making Love to Captain America, and it has a it has a little epigraph, something that Tony Stark says to Captain America. Sometimes I want to punch you in your perfect teeth. Could any human be more perfect? He's all the pretty whiteness I was taught to want to be or to have or to seduce, maybe. With my Thai African roots, my dusting of Europa found in the decoding of my DNA, somewhere near the kink of my hair and the size of my breast. I'm not sure how I love him more, with his uniform off or on, with the shield in front of him to ward off the enemy, or with his shield behind his back, his arms left open for an embrace. He's always right, even when he's wrong, even when he doesn't know the difference between the mouth open for exit or for entry. I want to make love to him, be wrapped up in all the stars and stripes of his convictions. I want to point out to him that the enemy is not always out there. Sometimes your enemy is your neighbor. Sometimes your enemy is some kid from Queens with daddy issues. Sometimes your enemy runs for president on your soil and calls you a thief, a rapist, a criminal, a choke in America's throat. Sometimes the enemy is forgetting that Cap and I can never see eye to eye because he's been on ice so long he doesn't know that America has become a dirty word that I only still use out of habit, that the habit is a secret thing I don't mention, like my deep desire for white boys and my constant need to break my body against them. Evolution has been unkind, Cap. Did you learn anything while you were cold? Say yes, and maybe there's hope for us all. Maybe we should all be put on ice, too. Or maybe we should just let you loose. Will you destroy your enemies as easily as you do your own? I don't want to know. The fantasy of you is so sweet. Let me stay sleeping. Let me stay dreaming. And when I wake, let me roll over and see your face, pretty white boy with pretty teeth. If I punch you, I'm the only one that bleeds. Fuck ice. So I'm gonna read this poem. Maps for Marcelo. Some maps have blue borders, like the blue of your name or the tributary lacing of veins running through your father's hands, and how the last time I saw you, I held you for so long, saw lifetimes flooding by me, small tentacles reaching for both our faces. I wish maps would be without borders and that we belong to no one and to everyone at once. What a world that would be. Or not a world. Maybe we would call it something more intrinsic, like forgiving, or something simplistic, like river or dirt. And if I were to see you tomorrow and everyone you came from had disappeared, I would weep with you and drown out any black lines that this earth allowed us to give it. Because what is a map but a useless prison? We are all so lost, and no naming of blank spaces can save us. And what is a map but the delusion of safety? The line drawn is always in the sand and folds on itself before we're done making it. And that line there, south of El Rio, how it dares to cover up the bodies as though we would forget who died there and for what, as if we could forget that if you spin a globe and stop it with your finger, you'll land it on top of someone living, someone who was not expected to be crushed by thirst. I'm gonna end with two new poems from a new collection titled, I think, the working title right now is American Thoroughbred, and I think that's gonna be the title, so. This is high stakes, and it has like all of my anxiety about our times and what's happening right now. Listen, I promise you I have no stake in this world, no political affiliation unless love is a political tool, unless my body is a political tool, unless my comrades are a political tool. I have no high stake in this world, no children to want to leave a better world to, nothing but fucking and bookmaking. That is my legacy, and it is as undeniable as smoke, yet may disappear like it too. I turn on the news, and not owning pearls, I clutch my fancy juicer to my chest. I gather around me my art and my mirrors, my plants, and my price of the ticket, a Bible. I think they're coming for me, for it, for all my million little nothings they consider stakes in this world. I got no gun. I got no pickup. I got no desire to burn the world. I don't own the world. I own a stand mixer and an eggplant-colored Le Creuset, a tiny apartment with bad pipes and creaking floors. I have no stakes. I barely got health. I barely got muscle. I want a garden near an ocean that won't eventually swallow me. I want my only job to be this, clawing at a white page until black appears. And suddenly, in that moment, I got something. And because we're in New York, and I am a Knicks fan, and basketball season is soon upon us, I'm gonna read this poem. As capitalism gasps for breath, I watch the Knicks game. And I immediately think of Cheryl, her Malik, his beloved obsession with the team's orange and blue, a sunset sky over this city, the ruckus of these players' sweet grit, the desire they have to come in first. They rebound and strip like stick-up kids. They pound the paint as if their feet were wrapped in Timbs, their lean torsos tattered and tapered in Coogee sweaters. This is New York, bodega filled with the aroma of a good chopped cheese, ambitions racing through our minds fast as the 2 train during rush hour. I watch the reverie on TV as the garden thrashes and quakes by the tectonic plate of our steadfast fandom. Don't get it twisted. Capitalism is still dying, and yet here I am, rooting for boys bred to burn out their bodies to make billionaires more billions. Was this what Rome felt like towards the end, when the Colosseums filled with gladiators stirred the masses into a frenzy? How the people hungered for food and freedom, but instead lost themselves in the carnal play of sacrifice. Reliable warriors, safer to believe in than Caesar. No matter. I think Fife would have loved this team. Unflappable and carefree, anti-establishment, uncompromising. What happens to a heart of a city when its people survive on air, that space between the flick of the wrist and the switch of a 3-point buzzer beater. We fight for a win to fill the ache of losing. Palestine, Congo, Sudan, Haiti. We take what we can, celebrate small victories until we win everything we thought we never could.
Thank you, Yesenia, for those beautiful words. All right. Now we'll be having a reading by José Olivarez. It's my pleasure to introduce José. José Olivarez is the son of Mexican immigrants and the author of 2 collections of poems, including most recently Promises of Gold, which was longlisted for the 2023 National Book Awards. Yes. His debut book of poems, Citizen Illegal, was a finalist for the Penn Gene Stein Book Award and a winner of the 2018 Chicago Review of Books Poetry Prize. Yes. Chi-Town. Along with Felicia Rose Chavez and Willie Perdomo, he co-edited the poetry anthology The Breakbeat Poets, Volume 4, Latinx. Alongside Antonio Salazar, he published the hybrid book Por Siempre in 2023, and he lives in Jersey City, New Jersey. Yes, welcome, Jose.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Guadalupe Olivares. Thank you all so much for being here. Congratulations to Isabella. I'm so excited to read your debut book. I do hope that all of you pick it up. For a debut book, it's such a special occasion, and I'm so excited to listen to the poems, and then to celebrate you, continue to celebrate you, and to see what you make beyond this. I'm going to read 5 poems today, I think. I made a set list. This first poem is called Against Citizenship. This is a new poem. I mostly want to read new poems, but so it goes. Against citizenship. My parents crossed the northern border and gave up their state. Which northern border, you ask? It doesn't matter. Every border is the same border. Stateless we, lived between bricks. Between we, grew every green you can imagine. Cilantro and jalapenos we offered to the state. Which state, you ask? It doesn't matter. Every state is the same state. The state rejected our greens. Wrong we grew taller, grew wronger. What the state rejected we turned into stew. What the state threw away we turned into tripas. Even my dad smiled with a mouthful of pickled pig feet. Between addresses, between social security numbers, in a shark's mouth we grew strong, picking leftovers from its teeth. Were you scared, you ask? Terrified we carried rosaries, gathered and blew away every dandelion on our block, held our hugs longer and laughed too loud. Report cards and tax receipts we offered to the state. Dollars and dolores we offered to the state. Wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong we invented a life. Get this, not citizens and not undocumented we, rejects of the state we, chose we, tripas people we, in between people we, reject the state. Okay, it is Hispanic Heritage Month, you know what I mean? Which means also that all of us might be held liable for being gathered together right now, you know what I mean? Since DEI is number one priority. I was joking at a reading earlier in the year. I told them that I was gonna make a book of poems called DEI poems, and maybe I'll still do that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know, people are crazy, but that'd be fun to make people angry. All right, this poem is called "It's Only Day Whatever of the Quarantine, and I'm already daydreaming about robbing rich people." I would like to punch Jeff Bezos in his stupid face. And I would like healthcare in case my hand bruises. And I would like to live long enough to hug my friends, to kiss my mom and dad on their foreheads and not worry about infecting them. I would like to live long enough to punch Jeff Bezos in his stupid face again. Is it stupid, you ask? Stupid or not, I would like to punch it. What does that solve, you could ask? This isn't a good poem, you could say. And you're right, it's not a good poem. I don't have health care, I don't have health care, I don't have health care. There's no way to make that pretty. But let me try. When sirens brush by our block, I see cardinals and blue jays brawling. Their feathers tickle our buildings. All I hope is the ambulance leaves before my magic trick unfeathers itself and the sirens become sirens become sirens. If we stole $1 billion from Jeff Bezos, he wouldn't even notice. So let's steal more. When sirens brush by our block, I don't see birds, I see bills and coffins. And when I see coffins, I see all the debt that can't be buried with me. How even in death, my name will be a worm in an accountant's spreadsheet. Cool. A lot of, parts of my poems are made up. So when I wrote that poem, I didn't have an accountant. Now I have an accountant. Yeah. Shout out to David. David also is a poet, as it turns out. And so when I visited him for the first time and I was trying to get all of my affairs in order, he was like, yeah, your shit looks pretty bad, but I did write a poem a couple weeks ago. Can I read it to you? And I said yes. And I was like, all right, can we get back and focus on the task at hand? Anyway, shout out to David. He's great. This poem is called Mexican Heaven. All of the Mexicans sneak into heaven. St. Peter has their name on the list, but some of the Mexicans... Oh, sorry, let me start again. My eyes are getting worse, so it's hard for me to do this now. Mexican Heaven. All of the Mexicans sneak into heaven. St. Peter has their name on the list, but none of the Mexicans have trusted a list since Ronald Reagan was president. 2. St. Peter is a Mexican named Pedro, but he's not a saint. Pedro waits at the gate with a shot of tequila to welcome all the Mexicans to heaven, but he gets drunk and forgets about the list. All the Mexicans walk into heaven, even our no good cousins who only go to church for baptisms and funerals. 3. It turns out God is one of those religious Mexicans who doesn't drink or smoke weed, so all the Mexicans in heaven party in the basement while God reads the Bible and thumbs a rosary. God threatens to kick all the Mexicans out of heaven si no paran con las pendejadas, so the Mexicans drink more discreetly. They smoke outside where God won't smell the weed. God pretends the Mexicans are reformed. Hallelujah. This cycle repeats once a month. Amen. 4. Jesus has a tattoo of La Virgen de Guadalupe covering his back. It turns out he's your cousin Jesus from the block. It turns out he gets reincarnated every day and no one on earth cares all that much. 5. All the Mexican women refuse to cook or clean or raise the kids or pay bills or make the bed or drive you to work or do anything except watch their novelas. So heaven is gross. The rats are fat as roosters and the men die of starvation. 6. There are white people in heaven too. They build condos across the street and ask the Mexicans to speak English. I'm just kidding. There are no white people in heaven. 7. Tamales, tacos, tostadas, tortas, pozole, sopes, huaraches, menudo, horchata, jamaica, limonada, agua. 8. St. Peter lets Mexicans into heaven, but only to work in the kitchens. A Mexican dishwasher polishes the crystal, smells the meals, and hears the music through the swinging doors. They dream of another heaven, one they might be allowed in if only they work hard enough. Cool. All right, 2 new poems, and then I'll get out of your way. Also, Yesenia, I love those poems. They're so beautiful. I'm so excited for High Stakes. This poem is called Beautiful Too. The weight around my belly hangs like a Jehovah's Witness door knocker. It was my cousins who first called me gordito. My aunts called me guapo. The song on the radio said, ay, como me duele. That kind of hurt made the girls in my homeroom wail. None of us knew heartbreak yet. We just liked the way the song fit our shoulders. Tailor-made. We learned the difference between the sucios and telenovelas and our dads was just a paycheck. My mom hated the women who forgave their cheating men. My gut reminds me of my cousins. Not because they called me gordito, but because they were Jehovah's Witness. They knocked on our door on the days before our birthdays. They couldn't eat cake. I loved that. It meant more cake for me. My cousins didn't know anything about God, but they had to wear the suits. The songs in church never fit us, so we had to repent. My mom hated the women who forgave their cheating men because it was easier than looking in the mirror. I grabbed my gut. I am not supposed to hate the way it looks. My aunts called me guapo. They called me guapo, but it wasn't for me. I understood. My aunts called me guapo, so my mom heard it. So she heard it and understood. They thought she was beautiful too. Cool. And then this will be my last poem. Thank you all so much for listening. This poem is called Love Poem at the End of Birthright Citizenship. Self-explanatory. So we woke up to find history one step closer to rescinding our citizenship, our lease to this land. So what? You and I never owned much of anything. Even the breath in our lungs is borrowed. Even our beating hearts will be returned to the soil one day. Let the state take whatever they want. Let them burn my writings, confiscate my books, deport me to another country waiting to deport me. On this earth, there's only one thing worth holding. Come here, hold my hand a little longer. Thanks, y'all.
Yes, let's give it up for Jose. Beautiful work. All right. Now, I want to turn it last, but certainly not least, to Isabella. author of Someone Else's Hunger. Isabella DeSendi is a Latina poet and educator whose work has been published in Poetry, the Adroit Journal, Poetry Northwest, and others. Her debut poetry collection, which you can purchase outside, I'm shilling, is called Someone Else's Hunger and was published by Four Way Books on September 15th, 2025. Her chapbook, Through the New Body, won the Poetry Society of America's Chapbook Fellowship and was published in 2020. Recently, she has been named a 2025 New Jersey Poetry Fellow, a finalist for Ruth Lilly Fellowship, and was included in the 2024 Best New Poets Anthology, among other awards. Isabella has attended Bread Loaf Writers Workshop, the Storyknife Writers Residency in Alaska, and holds an MFA from Columbia University. She currently lives in Hoboken. Everybody give it up.
Thanks, y'all. We made it! Ah! Hell yeah. Happy fucking, can I cuss? Happy fucking Hispanic Heritage Month. Putas, let's go. Hell yeah. Wow, there's so many things I want to say. Rob, Nick, Poets House, thank you so much for letting us be in this space. This is iconic. I remember being here. Yeah, give it up. It's such a treat. I remember being here like 10 years ago when I first started writing this book during my MFA, and just to be sitting looking out at the river and among the poets' voices and feeling like it was an option to be a poet in this city. And this place has just been such an icon and an anchor. When I was thinking about the lineup for tonight, I was like, I'm just gonna invite my favorites, and they all said yes. And I feel so honored to be reading with you both tonight. Beautiful work. Thank you for saying yes and being here. It's just like my heart is so grateful. And I was laughing, Jose, at your shout out to David, because my partner is an accountant, and I have messy taxes. And you know what he tells me? Use TurboTax. So what even good use is he? Just kidding. Love you. Okay, so let's get into it. I guess what I want to say about the book is, broadly speaking, it's about hunger. And the different manifestations that I sort of have been obsessed with hunger. The first is sort of thinking about my ancestors and family who are refugees from Cuba and the very real hunger that they live with on the island today. The book also explores hunger that I experienced. I suffered from anorexia and bulimia for a few years, and thinks a lot about that. And then I also contend with sort of hunger as desire, as this sort of life force that drives all of us to chase and to dream and to try to make something beautiful out of maybe the less beautiful parts of it. So that's just the down and dirty. And I say that as sort of like a trigger warning. If anything makes you feel unsafe, like, please feel free to take care of yourself. And I'm just going to read like 5 or 6 poems for you. Thank you so much for being here. It's such a treat. I'm so excited. Okay. Book starts with an epigraph. Last year, I abstained. This year, I devour without guilt, which is also an art. Margaret Atwood. All you need to know for this poem is my abuela was a priestess. She used to practice Santeria, and I spent a lot of time thinking about animal sacrifice and sacrifice in general, and the ways that we're taught that sacrifice or mutilation or violence are often prerequisites for love and for worth, especially to God and our deities. And I'm going to stop explaining things now. Once, while disemboweling the chicken, readying it for my lover's dinner, I remembered my abuela slashing the rooster's throat. I was 4, held the wet blade in my hand and cried. For days, the carcass hung like a cross over the red front door until it shriveled and stunk, turned gray as dried petals. Abuela said, "Don't cry." She said, "Be fearless and God-fearing as any white man." So I became just like guajiros carving the air with bright machetes. At home, in school, in America, razors slept in our socks like small slick moons, and hydrangeas bloomed despite the heat while I became a woman. For 20s, my tios chopped weeds with green machines spinning big metal mouths filled with hot blades. You must praise the Lord with your body, Abuela said. You must give yourself over, as Cinteros do, without doubt. At every ceremony for Dios, I held the white cloth in my hands like a soul. Abuela slashed the bird like a man unbothered. I thought the trick to surviving this country was to be good or beautiful or merciless like its people. But choosing didn't matter. Soon, I'd be pinned on a bed like an animal while someone else's hunger made a sacrifice of me. Of course, I tried to fight him off, but Abuela's birds taught me when your arms are pinned behind your back, there's no chance of breaking free. Across the neck, she motioned like this as she slid the blade and prayed and ate. How can I forget the hen's throat now? Her pulse ablaze with fear as I combed her feathers neat, placed her gently on the altar. Mira, Isa, you must kill the bird. This is how we speak with saints. This is how we prove our worth. The knife was light. Blood ran through my hands like a storm. I shouldn't have been surprised. It was easier than I thought. Replacing fear with numbness, cleaving the bird's breast in two. Stilled, her wings bent back the way my wrists bent when he cooed me quiet, squeezed my neck, hands warm and strong as a god's. This next one is a poem that's dedicated to my mom, and just two weird things about it. I became obsessed with like trying to understand the etymology of Spanish words, and the word tener, which is like to have or to possess. So when we say, "Are you hungry?" we say "Tienes hambre," which is like, do you have hunger? Do you have possess it? Which is different than "Are you hungry?" in English. And I think it's really interesting to think about, do you possess, do you have hunger? Or does hunger possess us? Does it have us? And the other weird fact is that in the feline kingdom, y'all probably know this, that the females are responsible for the hunting and providing for their families. But they also have really great memories, and they will often return to the sites where they've hunted to see if there's any new life there. And I don't know, I just think that's fucking cool. So this is a poem from my mom, and it's called Portrait of My Mother as Tiger. Lord, I can't tell you why I do it. Only that emptying myself was how I thought I got clean. In eating disorder therapy, they say food is a gift we deserve. But in Havana, where everyone is grateful for their little bit of nothing, my mama ate scraps the way tigers have learned to survive on bones, by holding the memory of a carcass like a loved one in their claws. In America, my mama's claws emerge, glint like cobalt in the sun. We clean so many offices for rich people. Our pockets shine with coins heavy as clouds eclipsing the black tongue of the sun. Now, Mama makes sure food is everywhere. Always, ¿tienes hambre? In fact, just last week in the middle of the night, I caught her in the kitchen slicing an orange with her knife. Like my mother, the tiger is barbaric, serene. Like all wild things just trying to survive, she has learned to break things with her hands, pray with her hands. When a tiger kills, it buries the bones in a bed of wet leaves, can never forget the grave of its prey, a place it will return to, the body that gave it life. Mama peels and peels and the orange bleeds. Will we ever return to our country? I ask. She picks the skin from its pulp like a surgeon exposing the hardened husk of a heart. Come closer, drink from me, her hands say. I don't blame her for being desperate, deadly. We'd be anything else in this world if we could. Lord, forgive me, but I lied. When I said Mama's claws, I meant her tears. When she asked, ¿Tienes hambre? She was asking if I have hunger, if I possess it as she does. Of course, I want to tell her. Isn't that what this insatiable void is? Big as a country inside me, grave I leave and return to. Okay. Y'all still with me? Okay. We're going up. We're gonna move out of sadness into just rage now. So, yeah, it turns. If you never mind, I'm not gonna make that joke. This poem is called Un Poema para Latinas, and it starts with this epigraph, which I may get sued for, but Four-Way let me do it. So it's by this angry white guy named Kevin on Twitter, because it's always an angry white guy named Kevin on Twitter. And he was pissed about, I'll just read you his tweet. This happened after the J-Lo and Shakira Super Bowl halftime performance. He said, I am embarrassed for my kids to watch this halftime show. What the hell? Stripper poles, crotch, and rear end shots. No dignity. Hashtag Super Bowl. Hashtag halftime show. Shame on you, Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. Un poema para Latinas. Some people like to keep pigs as pets. Some people are offended by J-Lo and Shakira moving their bodies the way the ocean has taught them to. Rise, fall, sway, rise, fall, sway. I will never understand how men can love what they hate. So what? We dip our hips. Brutish, warlike, gorgeous. In our countries, we don't have money, but we have mofongo, mythos, music, mules like us, the beasts of burden. We learn to make beauty from chaos, crashing, like waves we break and break against. I am done explaining why a woman's body is a woman's body. The man who assaulted me says it was my fault I wore a dress. I wish I could stand on a stadium stage now with tulips in my hand. 6-inch heels propping me up like a superstar or saint, while his small, stony eyes focus on my body, shaking like a hurricane, shaking like Persephone did when she stood proud in her gown of darkness and sang to her neighbors in the underworld, look at what you did to me. Look at what you did. Thanks, y'all. Okay. I'm just going to read 2 or 3 more, I think. So this poem I wrote for my tío Lázaro, who, he was sick in his 70s and came to live with us at my parents' house in Florida. And my mom was basically paying out of pocket to try to afford all his medicine, applied for Medicare, and they said no. And actually now you have 30 days until we're going to deport him back to Cuba. So this is a story about what happened the day after we got that letter. Elegy for Tío Lázaro. Because he was already dying, he figured there was no harm in huffing through 2 or 3 cigarettes in the early morning hours before my mother would wake. The animal of his thin brown body lassoed to an oxygen tank. Because he didn't have papers, we had to drive 2 hours to retrieve the tank from a discount store in Ocala, where my mom had to pay out of pocket for air that would be filtered from a rocket ship-shaped canister into a tiny tube 3 times the size of a vein directly into the soggy plastic bags of my tío's stalling lungs, just so he could drink cafecitos and play crossword puzzles or the lottery, while we sat around in the kitchen wondering how long we could keep him alive. My mom was elbow deep in dishwater when the letter came, denying our appeal for his citizenship. No, he could not get Medicare. Yes, he would have to go back after living 50 years in this country where at 20 he learned to fix engines in chop shops and likened himself to a surgeon, saying any man with purpose could fix any broken thing if he simply tried hard enough. Entiende, sobrina? It's why God gave us hands. Sometimes I like to imagine him in the garage, surrounded by brutal heat and moonlight, the broken chair under him barely keeping itself together while he held metal chunks in his hands like a heart, wondering where it all went wrong, believing enough screws could put it all back. Of course, this was after he fell in love with a woman in Kentucky, dreamt of being a local politician, and with that same American sense of disillusion, grandeur, discovered heroin, the God he'd worship until he felt nothingness. And after nothingness, the dull edge of sobriety, the death of his American wife, which meant the death of food stamps, which meant the death of a life that allowed him to lay on the roof of his car while he smoked Marlboros and recited constellations. Andromeda, Achilles, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, which made him feel just as smart as the white men he swept for. Aren't our lives just simple constellations made up of many deaths? Yes, someone in an office, in a building, in this country decided no, he could not get medical care. No, he could not stay. 2 nights later, Lázaro woke from a dream screaming aliens were coming to get him, that their ship was hovering over the house. The light, so bright, he couldn't see my mom's hands as she helped him back to bed. The next night, he died. Milky Way. One answer on yesterday's crossword puzzle. You can't tell me the dying don't know when their time is coming. The tip of the letter still sticking out of my mom's black purse like a cigarette, already flickering. Gone. Thanks, y'all. This is scary shit we do as writers, like getting up here and telling everyone everything, but we're here, we're doing it, and we have 2 poems left. Yes, okay. So I'll read this little one really quick. It's called Pep Talk for Medusa. And the book is filled with these sort of persona poems because I felt sometimes when I was writing for someone else, it was easier to feel courageous than when I was writing about the I. So, pep talk for Medusa. Don't let the girls with straight hair tell you you're unlovely. Your kinky hair abominable, pretty as a whip. Your hair hissing like rain, the sound shame makes when we sleep. When I was 7, a girl touched my curls and asked if I ever brushed them, if I had a mom, where I was from. She meant who was taking care of me, who let me look this unruly. I told her I too started girlish in the world, like poppies emerging feverish before someone else's hunger made me venomous as a woman. At a party in Bed-Stuy, a Latina with thin, straight hair will say, "We're lucky to be pretty," white passing. She didn't know my curls were brushed flat, buried beneath a slick nest of a bun. Answer me, Athena. And how many languages will I have to apologize for someone else's gaze? Tell them it wasn't my eyes that killed anyone, but simply the reflection of their own dark staring back at them. After the party, I went home and showered, then stared in the mirror at my brown skin, black eyebrows, brown nipples, dark cunt, wondering if anyone could see me clearly, and to whom I was God, monster. Thank you. Yeah, period. All right, and this is the final poem. Thanks y'all so much for being here. I just feel so so honored. I can't even express it. And it's funny. So I'll tell the quick anecdote about this poem. Sorry to people who have heard it before, but I wrote this poem during COVID, and I was doing like self-therapy work with a Zoom therapist to sort of work through some of these like bodily traumas, and she had told me to start dancing. She's like, turn off the lights and dance by yourself. And I started doing this, and it became a sort of like, I don't know, like ritual that it was just such a spiritual experience for me. And one night I was like dancing salsa by myself, and I was just like really into it. And this is literally like before TikTok and before you could be like doing selfie shit online. But I was like, fuck it. And I recorded myself dancing, and I posted this video online, and my mom immediately called me, and she was like, pick up your shit. She was like, she's like, are you okay? Like, I just want to make sure you're not doing drugs or anything. And dead ass. And then I was like, so embarrassed for myself, I deleted it and didn't talk to anybody for a day. But this poem is inspired by that, and it's called Milagros, or Self-Portrait at 28. Alone in my studio apartment in New York, I dance to Burna Boy y reggaeton and post a video of myself online. My mother calls to ask if I'm on drugs because it's difficult for anyone to believe a woman who lives alone might just be happy, shimmying in her skin the way the stars shake and ricochet just before they burst into the beautiful catastrophe of nothingness. In true poet's fashion, I have to say, I don't care what they think. I have to build this analogy out of language for you to believe I'm like the stars. I know my ancestors would have danced with me in quarantine because Cuba, like New York, is an island where everyone is lonely and everyone is grateful for their little bit of nothing, and joy is not earned but made. How else would we have bachata if it weren't for sorrow? Distance lovers finding each other's bodies under the gold-hazed rim of a rum-shocked drink which they sipped and spilled wherever they turned, whenever they danced, when they dipped, when they groped, when they kissed. When the congas, like familiar heartbeats, thumped like thunder, thumped as if to say, step here, breathe, hold one another. Haven't I been there? Been so hungry I was reckless? Felt so abandoned in my body I let any man hold me so I could pretend his hands were the hands of my first love sliding down my hips. Listen, all I'm trying to say is this world feels like an incomplete phase of the moon minus beauty. All I'm saying is what my people in the Caribbean have always known to be true. That a slick melody strummed against a summer sky rhythming is key to setting you free. Of course, when Burna Boy blares, I'm a hurricane spiraling. Of course, tocar means to make music and to touch. When I strum the impossible instrument of my skin, I'm a cello humming light, doing what I must to shake the night sky from my bones. My therapist says it takes years to shake a trauma from the body. But here's what suffering, I mean the combustive bodies of stars have taught me. Burning is the only way some of us can get clean. The problem is sometimes I forget this. And when I start to feel this way, when I begin to face the hard truth that I might not ever be deeply loved by anyone ever again, that it might just be me and this brown body alone forever in this home, well, I turn on my music and let the bass snake up my leg because I still love the ruckus it causes. The chaos of my hips like prayer releasing something like prayer revealing my sloppy, ineffable heart to the gods. Oh, reader, how else can I admit this? All I want is to be held. All I want is for you to come closer and dance with me. Yes, dance with me. Right here, right now, in this shitty kitchen light. And see if you don't feel free once reminded that our fabulous, infinitesimal lives, flickering, 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 are just like the stars. Bright, musical miracles that make it okay to say we are. Thanks, y'all.